Okay. Just want to make sure this is working correctly. Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. We have a fun topic that we're going to be discussing today, navigating the home buying process. And we have a few experts in the industry alongside helping me out with this presentation today. Becky Sullivan and Jack Party, who I will introduce here in a moment. But I'm really excited, and since it's 10 a.m. and we have a little bit of a longer presentation today, we'll just get started here. So my name is Jack Mancinati. First, I should probably reintroduce myself for those of you that don't know me. I'm a certified financial planner with Everhard Advisor, and I am not an expert in real estate, and I'm definitely not a mortgage broker, which is why I have outsourced this to people who I know and I trust. So I just wanted to say that as a disclosure before we get started. But today we're going to be talking about buying a home. And luckily enough, I've had the experience to do this last year, and I actually got to work with Mr. Jack Party down below. He helped me out in this process, and so he's someone that I trust and have known for a really long time. But today we're going to be focusing on the process of buying a home, but also we'll dive into some financial aspects as well. So with that being said, I'll let Becky take it from here and introduce herself and then hand it off to Jack.
Good morning, everyone. As Jack said, I am Becky Sullivan. I am a real estate consultant, and I have been for 25 years in Central Ohio. I love what I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in the business as long as I have. And I truly love helping people obtain their dreams of home ownership. So thanks for having me today.
Hey everyone, my name is Jack Party. I'm a loan officer with DMVR Lending. We're a brokerage. Most of us are here in Denver, Colorado, and we service a lot of different states like Ohio, Michigan, Florida, all across the country. And as a brokerage, we have 20 different investors that we can go to find the best rates and programs based off our clients' needs. So it's always wonderful helping clients navigate the home buying process that may seem so daunting, but in reality, it can be very easy with a helpful realtor and loan officer. So excited to be here.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Great. So the agenda for today, we're going to first talk about understanding your financial readiness. So creating a financial plan. Certainly, Jack just mentioned that buying a home is a lot different than it was certainly 5 years ago, and it's definitely a lot different than it was 20 years ago, as the price of homes have risen so much, and also interest rates over the last couple of years have risen back to historical norms. So we'll touch on that. Jack is going to dive into mortgages. Becky is going to talk more about the home search process, and then we'll all kind of tag team. Is timing to buy a home the right time, and then we'll talk about final remarks. So buying a home, okay. As a financial planner, we want our clients and we want people to create a plan, okay. When you create a plan, what you're doing is you have something that's intentional. If you set aside and say, hey, I want to buy a home in 3 years, and you start saving a portion of money into a brokerage account or into a money market account, whatever it is, having that plan in place creates intentionality. And what that does is it ultimately you're going to feel more accomplished in the long run. Now, of course, financial planning, we're specifically talking about the home buying process today, but I know a lot of young individuals want to get married, and they are maybe already having kids and they want to plan for college education, or they maybe want to start a business. So again, it's important to sit down with someone, talk about your goals, rank them from most important maybe to least important, and then create an actionable plan to get there. So we'll dive right in here, talking about just some benchmarks about buying a home and some things to consider. As we mentioned earlier, home prices have skyrocketed the last few years. Interest rates have not made things much easier. So we want to have realistic expectations for people. And just to be cognizant, the benchmarks that the financial industry has put out is you should not spend more than 28% of your gross income towards a house. That includes your mortgage, your taxes, your insurance. So for example, if let's say your household income is just 100,000, that means you should not spend more than $28,000 a year towards your mortgage, taxes, and insurance, or 2,300 a month, just about. Now you have to consider all your other debts too. What if you have student loans? What if you have car loans? What if you have a business loan? Those loans combined should not be more than 36% of your gross income, or $3,000 a year, assuming a $100,000 household income. All right. And then just some other things to consider. Your retirement is usually important for most people. Don't sacrifice your retirement savings to own a home. I would say for the majority of people, retirement's a big goal. Try to save 10% of your retirement, and that includes your company match. So if your company gives you a 4% match, if you have to put in 5 or 6% of your pay, that total 10% is a great goal to shoot for. And then maintaining an emergency fund. So this is incredibly important. It's even more important if you own a home to have an emergency fund, because there's going to be stuff that breaks down. Your water heater, for example, mine just did last week, right? So potentially expenses that are thousands of dollars will happen when you own a home, and having that emergency fund is really, really important. And then college expenses as well. But that's just talking about the overall financial planning aspect there. So when you do own a home, there's various costs associated with it. The first thing is your down payment and your upfront cost. So historically, the average has you need to put about 20% down to own a home. However, that's shifted over the last couple of years. Now it's actually the norm that most individuals are putting less than 20% down. And Jack's going to mention this a little bit later, but you can put as little as 0% down in some cases, but for a majority of people, it's going to be as little as 3% down. So the cost of home ownership is certainly real. I know that's a generic saying, but that is the truth. And then there's closing cost as well. So you have your down payment, and then you have your closing cost, the appraisal fee, the home inspection, the loan origination, private mortgage insurance if you put less than 20% down, property taxes, homeowners insurance, etc. We want to just tell you this not to scare you, but just to be thinking that, okay, buying a home is great, it's awesome, it's going to be a fun thing to do, but it can be expensive. All right. And if we just take a look at an example of historically, if you put a 20% down on a $400,000 home, which is an average home price in America, you add in closing cost and renovations and furnishings, you would need almost $100,000 historically to buy a home in today's age. Now, I say that again, this would be a more appropriate way to buy a home. I would say not an appropriate way, but a maybe more common way to buy a home now is putting less than 20% down. So for this example, we used 400,000 as the home price. If you put 3% down, which is 12,000, your closing cost would be similar, about $15,000 on average. And then the total upfront cost is much more reasonable at 27,000. Now, still, 27,000 is a lot of money to save up to afford a home. So we understand that. Just know, if you do put less than 20% down, your monthly mortgage is going to be higher because you're getting a larger loan, but also additionally, you're going to add in private mortgage insurance on top of that. So it might be more affordable up front, but your ongoing costs are going to be a little bit higher. Which leads us to just the overall ongoing cost of home ownership. So you're going to have your mortgage every year, but in addition to that, you're going to have taxes and insurance, which a lot of that is already wrapped up into your mortgage. But think about it. Since you're owning a home, it's a lot of times a larger space. So your energy bills are going to be higher. Your water bills might even be higher. Your cable, whatever it is. Owning a home is just expensive overall. And it's something that you need to be cognizant of and maybe not go all out and try to buy the biggest and best home that you think you can afford because the costs do add up over time. Now, the home buying process, we're done with talking about the financials. We're going to dive into some of the details here. Jack and Becky are going to take over in a moment, but here's typically how it works. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is meet with an agent. What I tell my clients is you're going to want to meet with, I think, even 2 agents just to hear their perspective. And I always think that buying a home is going to be one of the most expensive purchases that you're ever going to make in your entire life for most people. So meet with 2 agents if that's okay. Get a referral or recommendation. I know Becky's been in the industry for 24 years. So using someone that has experience, I think, matters a lot. And then you're going to want to get pre-approved. So that's where you're going to get in touch with Jack or somebody who you really trust and like. And from there, you're going to go house shopping, make an offer, get under contract, and then go through the inspection, appraisals, and then eventually you're going to own a home after all of this process. So that's kind of just a general lay of the land. I'm going to pass it off to Jack now to talk about this getting pre-approved process.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. So for us, when it comes to getting pre-approved, we like to start with an initial conversation, just a quick 15-minute call to really introduce ourselves, our company, and then get a better understanding of your financial situation. So how much are you looking to put down? What kind of properties are you looking for? Single family, condo, townhome? And really, kind of what's most important is how much are you looking to pay per month on your mortgage payment? Because you can be approved for $600,000-$700,000, but does that mean you should go buy a $700,000 home? Probably not. And maybe you want to stay closer to, the $400,000 range. So that's why understanding what you want your mortgage payment to be, we can back into a purchase price from there. After that, we have a loan application that's pretty easy to kind of go through. This gives us everything we need to know about your basic information, date of birth, social, put in your financial history or your job history and banking assets, things like that. So we can really give you a pre-approval and let you know that you're good to start writing offers. So that comes with like a credit pull, which we can typically start with a soft credit pull. Doesn't affect your credit score, doesn't cost anything to you, but allows us to understand what you're paying per month, car loans, student debts, things like that on a monthly basis, and really your credit score, what that looks like, because that has a pretty big factor into what your monthly payment might look like. After we get everything pre-approved, which would require eventually a hard credit pull, then you can start writing offers. So you can work with your realtor, start seeing homes, and start writing offers to find the home that works best for you. And then the other thing I want to touch on is, so those credit pulls actually last 120 days. So, even though you might not find anything for the first 2 months, you still have plenty of time before we would even need to think about pulling your credit again. And then there's a lot of different programs that we offer that we can talk about specific to your financial needs. Also, once we get through that loan application, I'd like to share a spreadsheet with you that breaks down, based off a home you might see, a purchase price. It'll show you everything that's included in your monthly payment, pretty much to the dime. So you know exactly what you can expect to pay per month. So it includes, just your principal and interest, plus taxes, plus insurance. If you have mortgage insurance, so anything less than 20% down on a conventional loan, it'll show you what that would cost, as well as if you have any HOA fees, it'll include that as well. And then lastly, it'll also show you closing cost expectations. So your final cash to close, down payment plus closing costs, what you can expect there. And it really helps give a holistic picture of, what 3% versus 5% versus 10% down looks like. So you can see, maybe it does make more sense to put less down. Even though the monthly payment's a couple $100 more, I'm saving $70,000 that can be in the bank to go towards home improvement or other investments.
Yeah.
So Jackie, you can go to the next slide. So there's three main things that we evaluate as lenders. First one is your debt. So this would come from a credit pull. Like I said, we can see everything you're expecting or what you are responsible for paying. So any car payments, any student loans, if you have another mortgage on a home, we'll see it all through a credit pull. And a lot of times, people think it's good to pay off debt. That's not necessarily the case. So we do tell people, one, don't go buy cars and stuff like that if you're under contract, because that can really hurt your credit score and hurt what you're pre-approved for. But the other thing too is it's not always a good idea to pay off debts. I've had a case where a client, they had around a 650 credit score, and then without telling us, they just thought it was a good idea to pay off all of their student loans, which actually put them down to a 555 credit score, and they were no longer approved for the loan. One of the reasons this happened is because history is a very important part of your credit, and they kind of wiped out years of history, which really hurt their credit score. The other thing we look at is your job history. So we need at least 2 years job history. You can be a student, for the last 2 years, that's fine. And you just got a new job, that's totally okay. You can have gaps in employment, that's okay as well. But we look for that 2-year history and then what that income looks like. So the nice thing is when we pre-approve people, we look at the gross income. So if your salary is 80,000 before taxes, that's what we use, and we take that at a monthly basis. If you're 1099, if you own your own job, or we can work through that. Just look at tax reports or tax reports to see what that income looks like. And then last thing is assets. So we want to know what money you're going to use to pay for the down payment plus the closing costs. And we'll need a 2-month history of that. So sourcing those last 2 months, whether that's savings, checking accounts that can come from, stocks, 401k. So, there's a lot of options. You can get gifts from parents or any blood relatives is also an option as well. So there's 4 main types of loan programs. The first 2 are the most common. Really, the first one's the most common, conventional. This is really for buyers. Typically anything above a 700 credit score would probably be the best case for you to go under conventional loan, just because you're going to have more favorable terms, interest rates, mortgage insurance. If you're putting less than 20% down. Here, and we'll talk about it more, you can put as low as 3% down if you're a first-time home buyer. After that, you can put as little as 5% down. Now, the interesting about being a first-time home buyer is you're also considered a first-time home buyer if you haven't owned a home for 3 years or more. So if that fits in your criteria, then you can be considered a first-time home buyer, put as low as 3% down. And there's also some other great programs for first-time home buyers as well. FHA loan. So this is a government-backed loan. This typically, their kind of sweet spot for borrowers is around a 680 credit score. So a lot of times if your credit score is under 700, it might make more sense to go FHA. You can put as low as 3.5% down at any point in time. And, a lot of times it's a great program to use if you're looking at multiple properties, where one, you do have to be a primary resident in the home, but you can live in one unit, rent out the other 3, and you can still only put 3.5% down. So another great program there. VA is a veteran loan. So if you're a veteran, a spouse, you can get a VA loan. Basically, a great loan if you are a veteran. 100% would use that because it has great interest rates. You can put as little as 0% down, and there's no mortgage insurance. So, and mortgage insurance is basically just extra interest you're paying the lender for not putting a certain amount down. Lastly is a USDA loan. So this is really for rural areas if you're buying a home there. Not as common, so we don't have to spend as much time there. So here's kind of the guide on, a little bit what we talked about for each of the different types of loans, right? If you're conventional, you can put as little as 3% down. You can put more than 20% too, although it's not as common, but it does help your interest rate and help you lower monthly payment as well. There's a lot of different terms you can do. Most common is 30-year, but you can definitely lower that. Saves you interest paid over time to help you pay off that loan quicker. Like we said, there's only mortgage insurance for down payments under 20%. Minimum credit score there is 620. FHA, very similar, as little as 3.5% down. Once again, there's, for all these 15, 20, 25, 30-year loans. And then mortgage insurance for FHA is actually required for the life of the loan. That's why, it could make more sense to go conventional if, you're seeing a better rate and better mortgage payment. However, it can be just for 11 years if you put at least 10% down. And then also the minimum credit score there is 500. Pretty similar for the rest of these, VA, USDA, there's no down payment requirements, no mortgage insurance, and then 620 and 580 minimum credit scores.
Jack, what are you seeing like typical rates are right now if you've got a pretty good credit score?
So for the last 2 years, they've been hovering around 7%, give or take a percent. As of now, rates have actually improved quite a bit, especially over the last couple of weeks. So right now for, a 760 credit score, we're right around 6.5 for a conventional loan. And then if you go FHA or VA, you're actually just under 6%.
Okay, right. And then one more thing I just wanted to add to going back to the planning aspect. Let's say you're going to buy a home and 3 years down the line. Your credit score, as we mentioned earlier, plays a big part in determining how low your interest rate is. So it's good to have that plan in place to, one, making sure that you're paying all of your loans on time. That's incredibly important. Two, what most people don't think about too is the length of history is great too. So make sure maybe you don't pay off your loans like Jack mentioned earlier. The third thing that I wanted to mention too is you actually want to increase your credit limit. So on credit cards, you have a credit limit for a month. You can actually call the credit card company and ask for an increase in that limit. So yes, you probably won't use that limit. Hopefully you won't use your entire limit, but that can also help improve your credit score and then ultimately lower your interest rate. And so you're going to hopefully have a cheaper home down the line.
Yeah, and one more thing to touch on there. So one, we have a lot of client upgrade specialists that we work with. So if your credit score is lower than you might hope for, we do have people you can work with, and they can really boost that credit score and save you quite a bit of money when you do come to close on a home. And then also, a couple of our investors have credit upgrade teams where they can, maybe your credit score is 700 and you're really looking to get it above 740. They can quickly look at it, determine what you might need to do to get it above 740. And a lot of times it's really just paying off a credit card that you might have already been planning to pay off. And they can do a quick repull. And within a week, you have a 740 credit score. Now, it's not always the case, but typically they do have, there's always an option for you to upgrade your credit, even when you're under contract.
Great. So we'll pass it off to Becky now to talk about finding the right home.
Yeah. Hi again, everyone. The first thing that I do when I meet someone, whether through a referral, I've had people find me through my website. However I find someone, the first thing I do is schedule a buyer consultation. So we will meet. one-on-one. I will share I have a buyer's guide that I will share. And this first meeting is to find out exactly what it is that you're looking for. What is the most important thing to you in finding a home? What are the parameters, such as, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms? Do you need a garage? Would you like a basement? So that first meeting is about 45 minutes to an hour. The first question I will ask you is, are you approved? In Central Ohio, we have been extremely competitive. The market has been really hot over the last, I'd say, well, since COVID. So since 2020, it's been extremely hot and competitive. If you're ready to write an offer, and I do this again at the first consultation, I would like for you to talk to a lender. It's so important to have a good team behind you. Every lender that I recommend, and again, what Jack Manzanati said, talk to a couple realtors, get a feel for who you're gonna get along best with. Who you feel like you're going to have the best relationship with. I do the same thing when I recommend lenders. Jack Party and I have worked together several times. I trust him. To me, it's all about trust. It's also about how available they are. When I show homes, it's not typically from 9 to 5. It's typically in the evenings and on the weekends. So I need to have that relationship with the lender where I can text them or call them and say, we're looking at 3 homes today. And again, typically it's on the weekends. We're looking at these homes. If my buyers are ready to go, I need to know how long it's going to take you to close. So that's vitally important to have that relationship with the lender. So the first thing I do, like I said, is we have a buyer consultation. I'll find out what your wants are, what your needs are. And then I will create a search for you on the MLS, the local MLS, which is the multiple listing service. And that is the most up to date. I know a lot of people start out using Zillow or Realtor.com, and those are pretty much up to date. But the MLS in your local area is like true time. It's real time. So I will create that search for you. Talk to people. Some people I know have found homes in the Facebook neighborhood search. So however you're finding your home, hopefully it is through the MLS because that's the most up to date, but let me know. And then we have a list of homes that we're going to go see. However you find those. And it is a process. I tell my buyers that we're getting to know each other. I will find out again what's important to you. And then, we'll see several homes. And depending on how competitive it is, if you're ready to write, usually a lot of people, well, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I think one couple bought the first home that they saw. So that's pretty unlikely. Yeah, have your priorities list. We'll talk about that at our first consultation. All right, Jack.
Yeah.
So when you visit multiple homes, I typically give you what I print off from the MLS, and you can take notes on that. I also tell people you're going to know pretty immediate whether or not you like this home. And it's hard to explain, but you will know. And I tell people that. Sometimes people walk into a home and they walk out of the home within minutes. But yeah, together we will remember each home that we see, we'll take notes, and then be ready to make an offer. Again, that's where the pre-approval comes into play, and you want to have that up front. Every offer that I submit the pre-approval with it. That just shows that you've done your due diligence ahead of time.
Yeah, that's well said. I just want to share a personal story too. Becky, you kind of hit it spot on. When you're driving in, you're excited to go see a home. You might see it on the MLS or Zillow. and you get in and you're like, this just does not look anything like the pictures. Or in some cases, you go to a home and you're maybe not as excited about, and then you walk in and you're like, wow, this place is amazing. So there's certainly a lot of emotions that are wrapped up into this. And it does take just a lot of time and patience, I would say, to find the right home.
And I want to make a point that that's why having a realtor on your side helps so much. I know that there have been a lot of changes over the last year with the National Association of Realtors. There's a settlement, and I won't get into all of that. But a lot of buyers like to go to the listing agent and not be represented on their own. It just helps so much because I will hold your hand every step of the way. Hopefully a good realtor will do that. And there are a lot of emotions. There's a lot that goes into this. And it can be scary. So hopefully you'll have a realtor that is experienced and will walk you through every step. Making an offer. So there are a lot of things that go into making an offer. It's not just about price. Yeah, price is important. I pride myself in having a good relationship with other realtors. I've always said that other realtors are our best clients. Having a good reputation, knowing the other realtors, I pick up the phone and actually call. If someone is interested in a property, I will call the realtor. Sometimes I'll even call with my clients there. I have the phone on, the speaker on, and we'll ask if they have any other offers. What's the activity been like? If my buyers have any questions, then I get those questions answered while we're there. So like I said, Central Ohio has been extremely competitive and hot over the last 4 or 5 years. So it's good to know what you're up against. Also, some people will do things to win an offer, to win, the bidding war. And I've just seen really crazy things happen. A lot of people will they'll ask for no inspection on a home. I will never, ever recommend that. A lot of people will put, lots of money. I had a situation in 2020 where my clients offered $75,000 over the list price. And a lot of that money, so you're only going to get a loan for where the home appraises. So if it doesn't appraise for what the agreed purchase price is, that additional if you go over the list price, $75,000 over the list price where it's probably going to appraise, then that comes out of pocket. So again, it's just really important to have a realtor that knows what they're doing, and one that is current with the market and knows what's happening.
Yeah, Becky, do you ever make recommendations on saying, well, you think it's worth this, or is that not,
Absolutely.
okay?
I was just gonna say, any home that any of my clients are ready to ride on, I will do a market analysis for that neighborhood and see. I just a couple weeks ago showed a property, and it's probably $30,000 over market value. So have told my buyers, unless they really want it, and I think they would probably be upside down from the start. But yes, that is my job to make sure that you do not overpay. And that, again, your decision is a smart one. We look at the current condition of the house. A lot of things you rely on the inspector because I'm not an inspector. However, there are things that I've seen being in the business for 25 years that I can tell you is probably a red flag and that we should, defer this to the inspector. Paying in cash versus a loan. Yeah, cash is king. However, there are some loans, and again, it's imperative that you work with a loan officer that can tell you, a lender that can tell you if you do have a loan, ways that you can be strategic. So if you are able to put a lot more down, you can maybe waive your appraisal. So there are a lot of things that can be done if you don't have the cash. Putting down a larger down payment, that definitely shows that you are really serious about the property and that it's a competitive offer. Again, I've seen where people have put down earnest deposits that are non-refundable because they want the home that badly. So again, it just depends on what the activity is like on that certain home. And that's, again, why the communication with the listing agent is so vital.
And Becky, real quick, do you want to explain what earnest money is for those who might not know?
Yeah, earnest money is like a security deposit. It's showing that you are very vested in this home. It's your money that you put down and you get it back at closing. Now, either you get it back or it goes towards your loan. That's decided upon by you and your lender. So it just shows, again, due diligence that you are vested in this home. You can't, so if you're have an offer on a house and you have the inspection, if something comes up on the inspection that you can't come to an agreement with the seller to fix, you will get that earnest money back. Earnest money is just means that you can't wake up one day for no reason. You have to have just cause. You can't just wake up and say, I don't want this home anymore. So again, it's like a security deposit and you get it back at closing. Yeah, you can send a letter to the sellers because of fair housing. We have to be careful with that and not include pictures. But I've seen that happen quite a bit, and I've actually have seen it help. Offer a shorter closing timeline. Again, that's why you want to have that relationship. Every realtor wants to have a good relationship with their lender. And when I started this conversation about writing an offer, there are a lot of variables that go into writing an offer, and how soon a buyer can close is very important. So not just the price, but how soon you can close. I always ask the listing agent what the seller's situation is. So if the sellers need a longer period of time for possession, then we'll accommodate that. So that means that we can close sooner, but then give the sellers maybe a month. I've seen 3 months sometimes where they have extended possession. So again, it's all about communication with the listing agent to find out what will help my buyers win the deal, but then also satisfy what the seller's needs are.
Yeah, and this is where having a realtor and having a loan officer make a massive difference. Because in a competitive market like we've seen specifically in the central Ohio area, there's going to be so many offers on one home that having a competitive offer, I think speed is a really big deal in my opinion. But being able to call your loan officer, being able to call your realtor and make a competitive offer quickly and competitive is just it can be all the difference in the world. So
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's a really good idea to have a relationship with the loan officer that you can just pick up the phone, like I said before. Okay, so hooray, your offer has been accepted. Your earnest deposit is given to the buyer's there are different options. Typically, it's to the buyer's brokerage, which would be me if I'm representing your brokerage. Or if I'm representing you as a buyer, it would be submitted to my brokerage account. There's also an option, but it has to be written in the contract that the earnest money is going to be held with the title company. So that's something that they're just different options. It is deposited though. And then, like I said before, you do get it back at closing. The schedule of the home inspection. So once you're in contract, the clock starts ticking as far as the timeline that everyone agreed to in the contract. So I will send you a timeline. I also send it to the listing agent so that we're all on the same page. I send it to the lender as well. So that timeline will say, we are in contract on this date. The inspections are due. Typically, the inspections are 5 to 7 days once you go into contract. So you have 5 to 7 days to do every inspection you want. You are responsible for paying for those inspections, and those inspections have to be completed on or before the last day of the inspection period. After that, and I do recommend probably 3 inspectors, just like we said before. Like, you want to get a good feel for who the inspector is. You can do some research on, you know, how good they are online. I do see here that a typical home inspection is 10 to 14 days, and that has happened. In our situation in Central Ohio, again, that's a term in the contract that 10 to 14 days basically is where the home is off the market. So that period of time is lessened to be competitive. And there are inspectors that can get out to the home probably within 5 days. I do like to have I'd like to have the home inspection done in the beginning part of the inspection period, because if there are other inspections that have to happen, you have to have those done within that time period. After the inspection period, there's something called the request to remedy period. A lot of people in a hot market will do away with the request to remedy period. So the request to remedy is you're requesting the sellers to repair or fix whatever items come up on the home inspection. I've seen those come back a little bit, but not so much. So a lot of people will do the inspection. You know what you're up against with the home, but you don't ask for repairs. You can, however, terminate the contract on or before the last day of the inspection period. Complete your mortgage application. So again, we are in sync with the lender. They know that you're in contract. That same day, as soon as we're in contract, I will send that contract to the lender, and then you will start the mortgage application with the lender. It has to be property specific. So that's why timing again is imperative. The lender or loan officer will order the appraisal. And then, oh yeah, so these are things you do not want to do during the home buying process. You don't want to buy or lease a car. I had that happen. We were a week outside of closing. This was probably 10 years ago. The lender did not tell the buyer that you should not do these things. And he bought a, I don't know, $65,000 new truck and could not close. And that was a week before closing. So that was a little hard to swallow. Don't change jobs, don't miss a bill payment, don't open a line of credit, don't move money around, and don't make a major purchase, just like buying or leasing the car. Okay. Insurance requirement, again, your lender will talk to you about what you need to do, but you have to have a home insurance. The closing disclosure, the lender will send you this. It has to be 3 days before closing. And then the final walkthrough. So it's typically 24 to 48 hours before the closing, you have the final walkthrough. And the purpose of this is you want to make sure that the home is in the same condition as when you put the offer in. A lot of times when people are moving, you know, they have a moving company, and maybe they're moving the couch and there's a huge hole in the wall. That's the purpose of the final walkthrough. Also, if you've asked the sellers to repair or remedy items, you want to make sure that those items are completed before closing. I like to wait. I usually do the closing 24 or the final walkthrough 24 hours before closing, just to make sure that if something isn't repaired, then hopefully it can be before closing. I think that's it.
Great.
Oh, and then final steps. Yay, you made it to closing. The title company handles the closing. They have a closer. I attend all of my closings. It's usually a party. I have champagne because this is a huge deal. Um, it's a huge investment. And again, I'm so excited to be a part of it. So I make it a huge party. Um, a typical closing usually lasts 30 to 45 minutes, sometimes an hour. We do not have roundtable closings anymore, thanks to COVID. And a roundtable closing is where the buyer and seller are at the table at the same time. That's happened probably one time out of 50 since COVID. Um, and again, I am there. The title company handles it, and it's pretty easy at this point.
Great. Great. All right. Well, we have about 14 minutes left in our hour, and we have a few slides here left to cover. And so a question that I get asked a lot is, Jack, housing prices are so high, interest rates are so high. Is it a good time to buy? And I think it just depends on your situation. I personally think it's similar to the stock market, where a house in stock market, you just don't know when the market's going to go down or up for that matter. If you want to buy, make a plan. It's typically based upon your situation. So if you are going to buy, just make sure that typically you want to be in that house for 5 years or longer. There's certainly transaction fees when you buy or sell, broker fees and all that stuff. So, and to avoid just the short-term price fluctuations, if the housing market does have a few years that are down, typically it bounces back similar to the stock market. Jack, did you want to add anything here to that?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really whenever the best time is for you. Like you said, you can't really time the market. And with appreciation, it's typically at least 4% per year. So on a $400,000 home, that's 16,000. So like you said, it's going to rebound. Um, and you'll make up for that. And that's why you buy, is for the equity in the home.
Yeah.
One thing that I'd like to add is what we say in the real estate business for realtors is you date the rate and you marry the house. Because a lot of people are waiting for the interest rates to go down. And if you do that, home prices are still going to rise. So it's best to buy when both Jack and Jack are saying when you're ready. And then you can also refinance when those rates come down. But the housing prices are only going to continue to increase.
Well said. And that brings us to our next slide.
Oh,
There it is.
When we hear rates are really high, when are they going to come down? So, Jack, when are rates going to come down? Can you have a magic ball? Can you tell us when they're going to magically
I
come
wish I
down?
could. I'd be a very rich man, but no, unfortunately not. Even economists don't know. A lot of them predict that it'll drop. Some think it'll just, relatively stay where we are for the next 12 months, around this maybe lower 6 to high to the 7% range. But historically, as you can see here, at one time back in the 80s, interest rates were up in the 18%. Now, obviously, the home prices were a lot lower than what they are today, but the market's pretty volatile. Like, it's pretty difficult to predict. It really comes down to like a lot of market news, and inflation coming down is really a good indicator of what interest rates are going to do. As they drop, interest rates drop. As inflation goes up, interest rates go up as well. So, like Becky said, a lot of what we say is marry the house, date the rate, because you can't predict what's going to happen with interest rates. And it's better to find a home that you love, that you're ready to pay for, maybe pay a little bit higher interest rate at the time, a little bit higher monthly payment for a few months, but then you can always refinance when rates drop, to a lower monthly payment. Versus, really back in COVID, when you see the interest rates back in 3%, things were super competitive. People were paying $20, $50, $100,000 over list price to get into a home because rates were so low. So a lot of times it can be better to maybe buy when there's less people out looking, where you can get, seller credits and things like that, a lower purchase price, and then refinance, which would actually save you money down the road versus going over. I think I saw, like, if rates drop another 0.5%, 5 million buyers will come out. So things would get super competitive. Where, if that's 6 or 12 months down the road, you can refinance.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing we didn't mention too is that the US housing market, there's a supply shortage of homes. And it's obviously very expensive to build new homes. So it's hard to say whether prices are going up or down. No one can know for certain, but if there's any tailwind, I would say home prices could be potentially headed higher just due to that supply issue right there. And I think that's for some reason why they've stayed so high for so long. There's a lot of demand, not enough supply there. All right, last question here. Should you pay off your home quickly? Now, for some people, having debt totally paid off is like a weight being lifted off of them. So that can be advantageous. However, if you're solely looking at the math of paying off your home, it's actually more advantageous not to pay it off. The reason being, for most people, they might have an interest rate of 5 or 6% or even lower, 2 or 3% for some people that bought homes in 2020 or refinanced. You're better off investing that in other areas like the stock market potentially that have historically averaged 10% and put your money to work that way rather than paying off your home. However, we know that being debt free is an awesome thing to be. And that definitely, there's not a right or wrong answer there for you. That kind of just comes back on, that's going to be a personal question for you. And then the power of equity, owning your home, as we've seen in the last couple of years, has been a huge way to build your wealth. Home prices have skyrocketed. That means your equity in your home has also gone up, which for some people, they don't access their home equity ever. However, there are ways to use lines of credit on your home. There are ways to access that home equity that you have, and it can be powerful, whether that's to fund education or to fund a business. There's a lot of value to that, and that does show up on your balance sheet. But this is just another reason why it's great to own a home, especially over your lifetime. So we're going to open it up to questions. Let me see. We've got about 7 minutes here. Let me see the chat box to see if there's any questions. Okay. I think we've got a couple questions, and now would be a good time, if you haven't done so already, type some questions in the chat box. We've got 7 minutes left, and we'll help answer them as we go. So let me stop sharing my screen really quick. Okay. Back to the chat box. Great. All right, so first question is, when would you recommend putting more than 20% down versus using money above 20% for investing? That's a good question. When interest rates, or any debt for that matter, whether it's a home or a car or anything that you can get a loan on, is, I would say, above 7+, that's when you would consider paying that down sooner rather than later. That's when you consider putting more money down when interest is kind of at this level that we're at. It might be more advantageous to put more money towards your house, because that expense can really add up. That debt interest expense can really add up over time. So that's my personal, that's kind of our firm belief, is once you get over like 7.5, it's definitely probably more advantageous to pay it down sooner. Becky or Jack, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would say one thing. Like I said, when it comes to buying a home, depending on how much assets you have, maybe it doesn't make sense to put 20% down. Maybe you're more comfortable taking a little bit higher monthly payment than bringing 20% or more to the table. However, if some people do prefer keeping that monthly payment as low as possible, they have the cash to put more down, and that's what they prefer. They prefer to keep their equity in homes versus maybe stocks or some other investment tool. So it really comes down to the client in that case. And like I said, we show all the options. We show you what it looks like for 10%, 15, 20, 25% down so that you can make the decision. The other thing, if you are looking to buy an investment property, interest rates get hit harder. So you are going to have a higher interest rate than if you're just looking at a primary home. So you are getting a lot more favorable terms, putting 20%, 20, and then 25, 30% down. So that's definitely too where it can make sense to put more down when it comes to an investment property.
Sweet. We are getting a lot of questions here, and I do want to be mindful of our time, so we'll start to answer these fast. All right, the next one is, in situations when possession of the house is after closing is extended, when do the mortgage payments start? Does that make sense?
Mortgage payments, yeah. And it's actually pretty interesting. Maybe some people, probably most people don't know this, but let's say you close March 15th, your first mortgage payment, it skips a month. So it's not actually until May 1st is when you have your first mortgage payment due. And it's actually, you don't start getting late payments until the 15th. So there's always a 15-day window where you can make those payments. But if you do a rent back, typically what we'll do is you'll make the monthly payments, but the sellers who are staying there a little longer would pay you for their time that they stay in the home past closing.
I do want to make it clear, though, in my experience in Central Ohio, in fact, I just closed a deal in January, and the sellers don't have to be out until March, middle of March, and they're not paying rent. Again, that's one of those competitive terms of a contract that you have to negotiate with the sellers.
Okay. All right, next question. What are the pros and cons of buying an existing home versus a new build?
I can tell you a new build is wonderful because you're not competing against anyone else on a home. However, there's a shortage of new builds. There are a lot of areas, where there are new developments, but it's outstanding. And I have great relationships with a lot of the developers and new home builders. So we would meet with that representative, and there are advantages and disadvantages of both. Things are really going to heat up this spring, and so the competition is going to be pretty fierce with existing homes.
Right. All right. So the next question is, if I did put 15% down payment, how much would my mortgage insurance be?
So it definitely depends on credit score. That's where credit score has a huge impact. As you get closer to 20% down, mortgage insurance gets lower. So, if you put 3% down, that could range from anywhere from like $125 a month to, if you have a bad credit, close to $300 or more a month. 15% down, you're probably, with the 780 credit score or higher, you're probably under $30, maybe right around 30. The worse your credit score, that might go up. But still, being 15% down with a bad credit, you're still probably less than $100 a month.
Great. All righty. I've contacted several lenders and their interest rates differ and higher than our local bank. When is it better to use a recommended lender versus a bank given the higher rate? Well, I think it comes down to a lot of its communication. Of course, having the low rate's great. It's somewhat of a commodity and you want to have that, but having someone who, again, during the process when you bid and when you're trying to buy a home, having that connection, whoever it is, whether that's a local community bank or if it's someone who's outside of that, communication's big. And just comes down to preference, I think.
I do want to say that be careful, because if they're offering lower rates, it could be hidden somewhere.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, the other thing I would touch on is a lot of times banks are just working 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. A broker, is typically working on the weekends too and can answer your calls, especially if you're deciding to make an offer and need a pre-approval or something, and the deadline's Sunday at 5 p.m. Those situations can help.
And then there's only a couple more questions here. Carla said, any suggestions for someone who co-signed for a vehicle of an X? He's not paying the loan on time. Credit score keeps going down. Credit recovery / boost ideas for her. Otherwise, credit was great. So I would say if you co-signed a vehicle, let me answer that. I'll get back to you on that, Carla. We'll chat offline because I know it's 11 a.m. here. So let me get back to you on that. The last question is, when considering current home equity to ballpark new home price purchase. So basically they own a home, they're trying to buy a new home, it sounds like. How much should you account to take away for in realtor fees?
Great question. So if you're selling a home, and I think that's what she's asking, is you will have your realtor sit down with you. Commissions are negotiable. I cannot stress that enough. Customarily, it's been 6%. However, there's no rhyme or reason for 6%. And again, it's very negotiable. Typically, what I do if somebody is selling and buying, and we'll sit down and talk about the commission, but I do discount on the sales side. And then sellers pay for commission. So as a buyer, I don't know if people always know this either. As a buyer, you do not pay realtor fees. The seller does. So hopefully that answers your question. Contact me, please.
That's great. That's great. Well, I just want to say thank you to Becky and Jack for hopping on and sharing some of your expertise. We're going to wrap it up here. As a reminder, all of these slides will be sent out to everyone tomorrow. We have to get it approved. They're going to be sent out. Jack and Becky's contact information is on there. I'm biased. I love these people. I've used them before. So of course, my personal opinion is I would recommend them, but certainly you can reach out to them directly or reach out to us for further financial planning for your house.
And please do, no matter where you live. I know it doesn't matter if you're in Ohio. Please reach out anytime. You're never bothering me. And I'd love to hear from you.
Great. Great. Well, thank you all again. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.